Hey there everyone and welcome to Z Mastery. Do you want to design and build a responsible web page without using many floats and positioning property in CSS code? If so, CSS Flexbox is coming to play. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to use CSS Flexbox in order to design and build a modern-looking responsible web page without using many floats and positioning properties in CSS code. Now, let's dive right into the video. Alright everyone, to use a Flexbox, first we need a container and some children in our HTML. Then in our CSS, we can go straight to the bottom of the file and ignoring all of the base styles and give this class selector, the container, the display of flex. This created two invisible axes, a main axis and a cross axis. As you can see here, our items are no longer stuck on the top of one another because the display is positioning our items on the main axis. By default, the main axis is horizontal. If we want, we can change the main axis to be vertical with the flex direction property. If we set the flex direction to column, then the main axis will be vertical. If we set it to row, the main axis will be horizontal. Now, we actually want our main axis to be horizontal, so we set the flex direction to row, or we could remove it entirely, since by default the flex direction is set to row. Now, knowing the direction of our main axis, we can align our items along the main axis with the justify content property. The default value for this justify content property is flex start. See, nothing happened. But if we set it to flex end, our items will be pushed to the end of the line, just like this. If we set it to center, it will center our items in the middle, right? If we set it to space between, it will evenly distribute the item between the first and the last item, like this. If we set it to space around, it is similar to space between, but now the edges also have the same spacing to them. And finally, if we set it to space evenly, it will evenly distribute the space in between all items, just like this one. Alright everyone, justify content is for aligning items on the main axis, but we can also align items along the cross axis with the align items property. The value for this align items property is flex start. Flex start places the items at the start of the cross axis. If we set it to flex end, it will place the items at the end of the cross axis, just like this one. If we set to center, it will center our items in the middle of the cross axis, like this. And if we set it to baseline, it will align items just like this one. So that the baseline text of each item is aligned. To understand this in a better way, when I increase the size of some item, for example, when I increase the font size of the third item, let's say to rem, now this item is larger than the second, but with align item set to baseline, the baseline of both texts are aligned. Yes, I hope you have just understand justify content is aligning items on the main axis, whereas aligning items is aligning item on the cross axis. If we don't define a flex direction on the container, then the flex direction is set to row by default, which also means that by default the main axis is set to horizontal, meaning left to right. And by default, the cross axis is set to vertical from top to bottom, right? So from here, when I said flex direction to column, as you can see here we have the main axis in the vertical direction. When I say flex direction to column reverse, right here, column reverse, take a look. We have in the reverse direction item 3 right here and item 1. When I said flex direction to row, it is a default value, right? Here we have the main axis is horizontal. If I can set the flex direction to row reverse, here we have item 3 from left to right. Here we have item 3, item 2, and item 1. That's it. From here, by defining a flex direction of column, we can switch them so that the main axis becomes vertical instead of horizontal. When the flex direction is set to column, justify content will still align items on the main axis. The main axis is now vertical. This is a key to understand what Flexbox is. When I add more items to the container right here, by default, the flex items will all try to fit into one line like this. So, as you can see here, the item will start crushing each other. To fix this problem, we can make our items wrap with the flex wrap property. By default, this is set to no wrap, but we can set it to wrap. And now, when I set it to wrap, as you can see here, our items are no longer trying to fit into one line, just like this. But instead, it makes to wrap when there is no more spaces available, right? When we have a flex wrap set to wrap, a new CSS property is coming to play, which is align content property. Don't confuse the align content property with the align items property. Align content property only works when we have a flex wrap set to wrap. This property allows us to align everything on the cross axis. The possible value for this align content property are pretty much the same as with justify content property. So, flex in, center, space between, space around, space evenly, and flex start are the values that goes with align content property, right? Take a look. Flex in, center, space between, space around, space evenly, and flex start. Alright, you can also add gaps in between items, right? Currently, as you can see here, all our items are touching each other. We can use the gap property on the container to add gaps or spaces in between each item, just like this. All the flex properties I have shown you so far belongs inside the container, but there is also a few other Flexbox property that belongs in the direct children of the container. So, FlexGrow is one of them. But before I get into it, in our HTML file right here, I'm just going to remove most of our items. I remove this and leave just the first three. Then in our CSS, we can remove the flex wrap and the align content property because we don't need them anymore. Under our container, we can select the first item by its class name. Here we have a class name item first and give it the flex grow of 1. As you can see here, FlexGrow takes a unitless value that serves as a proportion, and the main purpose of using FlexGrow is it allows the item to grow if there is enough space for it. To do so, we can see our first item grew to fill our remaining space, right? The question is, what would happen if they all have a FlexGrow set to 1? Well, let's take a look. As you can see here, the remaining space will be distributed equally to all children, just like this. Next to FlexGrow, we have a FlexShrink. Well, FlexShrink also takes a unitless value, just like FlexGrow. This property defines how fast one item shrinks in comparison to the other items. If I set item 3 to have a flex shrink of 4, for example, the item 3 will shrink much faster than the other items. If I don't want an item to shrink at all, I can set it to flex 0, right? As you can see here, now the item is refusing to shrink anymore, like this. Well everyone, another item property is flex basis. It defines the size of the item before the remaining space is distributed. Basically, if your item already has a size like a width as you can see here we have each item with 120 pixels. But if you want to override that size with something else, then you can use a flex basis. For example, like I said before, my item 1 has a width of 120 pixels. So I can override that size by setting the flex basis to something else, like 400 pixels. Now my item 1 has a width of 400 pixels, right? As you can see here, 120 pixels, which is defined, overridden by 400 pixels, right? If you set it to 0, you are basically shrinking it to the maximum, right? From here, instead of saying flex shrink, flex grow, and flex basis, you can use the shorthand representation for these three item properties, which is flex. So, flex 1. When you set flex to only 1, the other parameters, the second and the third parameters are optional. That means the two optional values are set automatically for you. Yes, here we have another item property is align serve. This one will override the value that you set in the align item on the flex container, right? That means here we have align item center for the flex container right here. So, for example, if I have an align item set to flex start on the flex container, but we want the first item to be aligned center on the cross axis, I can use the align serve property in order to override what I defined in the flex container right here. As you can see here, this individual item is being placed at the center. Other than the center, you can also have a possible value like flex start, flex end, and baseline, right? Alright everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and press the notification bell icon since more incredible contents are on the way.